Hi, everyone. It's the eve of Christmas Eve. I hope you are doing fabulous and everything is going well on your side of the world, wherever you may be and may be heading. I thank you for joining me this evening. This is the rundown. We will spend a little time talking about West Indies cricket and leave space for you if you want to come on and talk about other things as well. Christmas should be a happy time. But sports doesn't always put us in a position to be happy. But I want to thank you. I want to wish everybody a lovely holiday season, depending on how you're celebrating it. I hope you get to spend some time with your loved ones, and if you can't, maybe you get a chance to talk to them on the phone and call them. And as usual, thank you for your support and for being around the channel for this 2025 as we wrap up the year, of course, and supporting everything that we do. As you know, we just dropped an interesting interview on the channel with Margaret Fleming from Front Office Sports. She was one of the first to detail a breaking news story on Grand Slam track and their bankruptcy efforts. So we had to get her on the channel, and we put that out yesterday. So hopefully, you guys can get a chance to watch that and support it if you can. If you can't, then no big deal, but it's there. All right. Yeah. And we'll get into a number of interesting things this evening because, as usual, I want to talk a little bit about cricket and kind of end on the series there in in New Zealand, and not on a note that I thought we would have ended on. And I'm a little bit distraught about that, in the sense that West Indies always gives you a little bit of hope, and you never get it. So I've been thinking about this because it happened on Sunday. You never always want to come on a reaction and talk about things that happened. Maybe you say things out of context. So try to put my thoughts together in some capacity. And there's no way I can go around it. It was the Bay Oval massacre. That's the way I thought about it, right? 87 without loss, ending on 138 all out. And you look at a day five test match, they managed to get into day five. It's a sun drenched day. It's hot there in New Zealand. It's their summer. You had two sets of openers and a draw in reach because New Zealand declared the night before, well, the evening before, night for us on this side of the world. And Brandon King and Campbell ended without loss. So they came back and they started. And this was an opportunity for West Indies to prove that they belong. And you fast forward 2 hours later, 10 wickets for just 51 runs. How else can we say it? It wasn't just a loss, it was a historic capitulation. That's the West Indies way. And I want to break down some of the points there. And I want to give some shout out to New Zealand because there's a lot of records there, things for them to be impressed by, right? So we're breaking down that test match, if cricket is your thing. And if it's not, stick around still. And it's a match that we saw some 40-year-old records going, and especially on the side of the New Zealand does there. An opening partnership that delivered something that we hadn't seen in a long time. And a batting collapse, guys. A batting collapse that was just devastating. But at the heart of all of this, too, is the captaincy of the West Indies that we have to also touch on. That's a point of return that comes back now. And we have to see how we evaluate Roston Chase as well. And maybe I'm going to be unkind to him, and I don't want to be unkind at this moment. But it's one of those things. How did all of this go so wrong? But there's a personal take here as well. Because the truth is, you know, I was having a good time on Sunday. We had some company over, special company. I don't want to detail all of that, but it was great. Had a lovely brunch. I prepared most of the food and it was fabulous. And we was just chatting, having a good time, watching TV, doing all sort of different things. We even watched the volleyball championships between Kentucky and Texas A&M. Women's volleyball, fabulous. If you haven't watched it, you should get into it. And it was about dinner time. The test match started, and we didn't have plans for dinner, so I ordered some lovely Indian food. Giving too much details here, but I'm on a roll. And we, I said to myself, I'm going to pick the food up. But normally, when cricket is going on or any sports I'm watching, I'm putting it on my phone. I'm kind of listening to it in the car. I decided not to. We went to get the food. It was no wickets had fallen at the time. So I was like, West Indies looked set from the night before. They came back. Campbell wasn't making a lot of runs, but King was in fine form, it seems like. And so I come back only to see that 4 wickets had been gone. And I almost fell over. I was like, what is going on? I just can't understand this. And the reason why I'm a bit upset again, and I fall into that trap, and many West Indies cricket fans do, and even world fans around, because you talk to people all over the world. The Windies are usually their second favorite team, especially if they are of a particular vintage. And so it hurts because to understand this collapse, you have to also think about how the series started. And you go back to the first test match in Christchurch. And we were hailing the West Indies as heroes, the world was. And this is also going on at a similar time when Ashes is going on. So great cricket is going on. At one point, I was saying to myself this morning, would I like to be feeling the way the English fans are after losing the Ashes in 11 days? Or as a West Indian fan, right? Perhaps the English are always still better because they can still win a lot more matches than certainly we are capable of doing, although they look to the Ashes as the pinnacle of cricket for them. And so you go back to that test match in Christchurch and they batted for a staggering 164 overs in the second innings to draw it. Fabulous batting from Shea Hope. Masterclass from Justin Graves, his maiden test double century. Resilience from Kemar Roach as well. And you top that off with how he was bowling as, taking a 5 for 2 at his age, coming back into the test match set up after injuries to the likes of the two Joseph, Shamar and Alzari. And you wonder if that was the kind of new resilience that we wanted from the West Indies. And good evening to everybody coming on the live. But that hope was short-lived because in the second test match in Wellington, the reality set in. And I did another video and I was like, we regressed to the mean. That was the kind of takeaway. They were rolled out for 205, 128, losing by 9 wickets. And by then, Duffy had arrived. And I got to get to Duffy in a second there. Where you want to call it Duffy, cyclone, the storm, whatever kind of analogy we want to put on it, or not analogy, but moniker on it. And heading into this final test match, the series, you're down 1-0. In a way, you were saying the West Indies, and you think about what Sammy was saying and what Chase is saying. They're desperate for a win in Christchurch. If they could, desperate, not Christchurch. They're desperate for a win after what happened in Christchurch. And you think about the conditions of the pitch. By the time we saw it, we realized there's no winning. You were going to at least lose the series by 1. Maybe a draw. That was more likely result. But West Indies just gave up. They capitulated. And it's tough. It's tough. But before you got to this collapse, you know what? Let me just look at this. I know you guys have probably seen it, but you look at this kind of batting here. That's Chase. We'll get back to Chase in a second. But I'm operating solo, so I just wanted to show this. Look at that. So this is the second innings here for West Indies. Campbell 16, 67 for King. King was doing most of the batting. Then look at this. Hodge 0. Even though he had a fabulous century in the first inning, and we can get to him in a second. 2 for Athenaeus. Graves 0. Chase 5. Hope 3-2. Hope, at some moment he was ill. Kemar Roach apparently had some leg hamstring injury too, but nothing here. Absolutely nothing. So before the collapse, there was great batting going on. It was a pitch that you're like, okay, New Zealand made a lot of runs. You got to give it to Conway, Devon Conway, to Tom Latham. I mean, they didn't just bat alone. They kind of rewrote some history. In the first innings, they put on a massive, what was the partnership? 323 run stand. That's great. That's impressive. In the second innings, they came back and did something that we didn't think was possible. Both of them again scoring centuries. So in the 148 year history of Test cricket, it's the first time we've ever seen. It's the first time we've ever seen an opening pair both score centuries in the first and second inning of a Test match. Outstanding. And then for Conway himself to become the first New Zealander to ever score a double century and another ton in the same Test match. So they went out there, understood the conditions, home conditions for them. The West Indies bowling wasn't necessarily on point. It took a long time, especially in the first innings, to find their way. But they set a target of 462 to win. So that's above the world record from what we saw many years ago. West Indies chased down against Australia. It's more runs, I believe, than what Australia gave India to win. Not India, England to win recently too. I think by any account, this would take another world record. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it was a Mount Everest type of challenge, right? And on a flat pitch, you look at what happened in day 4. The mission was simple: draw the Test match, because Hope wasn't well. He's battling with some illness. You also know that Roach struggling as well with injury. So what are you going to do? Draw the Test match. But instead, what we get is the anatomy of a collapse. Classic West Indies now, collapsing all the time. We saw a masterclass earlier in Sabina Park this summer when Australia routed the West Indies in that match. Mitch Stark, Scotty Ball, and all those guys. And then you come back again with some, not quite the same, but might as well be, because day 5 started perfectly, as we mentioned. King, Campbell, they were cruising. King was making all the runs, the shots. Campbell looked a little bit off, but he was okay. Comfortably was there from the night before. And the collapse started. So once Campbell left for what I can only assume would be a long-standing 16 runs, because he was there for a while, the pitch started to do something suddenly. And I'm not sure the pitch was doing anything. And in the blink of an eye, I told you, I went to pick up food and they had no wickets down, and I came back and it was 4 gone. And the middle order just vanished in front of our eyes. Hodge, his 123 unbeaten in the first innings. A duck. Hope, what did he scored? Like 3 off. How many? I got to check it again. It was like, it's one of the longest threes I've ever seen. It was like 3 off 78 balls. But maybe he wasn't well, and this just a procession began, right? And outside of that 67 runs that Brandon King mustered, no other batter in the second innings on a flat pitch to save a test match in day 5 did anything. They didn't have a respectable score. 10 wickets falling for 51 runs is just unacceptable in conditions like this. It's a mental freeze. Absolutely shambolic. I know it's Christmas and we should be happy. But it's gonna get me into another situation where we've been talking about for a long period of time. And that is the captaincy. Look, West Indies is riddled with a lot of problems, right? Sammy took over all things this year or last year. Still don't know if that was a whole money issue or what. But in modern day cricket like this, it's just beyond me that you can have a head coach that is operating on ODI and in both formats, obviously T20 and 50 over cricket, and then also to oversee what's happening at the test level. There's a lot of things to be in charge of. But anyway, I digress there. But the idea that we decided to bring Roston Chase in as captaincy after Craig Brathwaite uh, ended his time. At that point, I was very shocked because when you're thinking around that kind of situation, even at that moment, I was like, maybe you could think about Alzari Joseph. At one point, I was even saying maybe Joshua De Silva. He hasn't been back in the team since, but I was saying maybe. But Chase, who had a 2-year hiatus from cricket, comes back and he's the West Indies captain. Someone comes to talk to him in Barbados and he's like, will you take the job? And to be honest, I don't think he would say no, but he probably should have. He was effectively out of this thing for a long time. And what did he really offer as well? Because I think in teams that struggle, let's be honest with you, when you have a team that's been struggling, and boy, the West Indies for 30 years are prolific at struggling. You need captaincy that will step up and do something that can fight and deliver masterclass performances and probably drag up a few to get in line. You need him to step up when no one else would. And he delivered an absolute joke of a batting performance over the season. And I like the guy, but it's not about it's about the results. Averaging 7. He averaged 7 in the test series. I don't know. As a leader, especially in a fragile team like this, you have to lead from the front. But for Chase, to be honest with you, he looked like a man haunted by, think about Duffy and all the other guys, but he's haunted by the weight of this thing is it's a hard cap to wear. That maroon cap is a heavy piece of a thing to put on to say you're captain in that side. It's broken greater cricketers. No disrespect to him, but it's not a easy thing. The guy couldn't buy a run in the series. And his off spin didn't do anything, offered no control, nothing. And so it's a brutal question to ask, but I'm asking it again. How can he justify his place in the starting 11? How is he making the team? He cannot make this team as a specialist batsman, and neither as a bowler. And he's the captain of this side. I mean, this to me should end his test career. With all due respect. Because it's not, I'm going to bring up his statistics overall. I want to show you because I'm not trying to be that guy. I like the guy. What is he now? He's 33 years of age. Let's put some stats up. He's 33. He's played 57 test matches. Usually we know what you're going to be in the first 20, 25, 30. If we think there's some extraordinary talent there that's just been having a nightmare, maybe you get a chance to go back and come back again. 57 matches. He averages 24 in test cricket. That can't work. It certainly can't work in a side like this. He has 500s, 1150s, 2,486 runs. Not good enough. Averages 7 in the series. And with ball, it's 94 wickets, but the average is like almost 50. It's 48.36. It's not doing anything. It's not the kind of all-rounder you're like lining up yourself to put in the team. Problematic situations here. I mean, that cap is a heavy cap to put around your neck. And then the questions were like, so who else? At this stage, I don't care. Anybody else, but he himself needs a timeout. And you could see the weight on his shoulder as well. And when you take on the captaincy, it's a tough thing. It is a tough thing. You expect sometimes that you might average a little bit less because there's a lot more responsibility. Guys, you have to motivate and media obligation and chatting and selecting with the coaches and all of that stuff. It is a weight. So you have to be at a level. And I'm telling you, many teams, many superstars, he's like, they should be the captain of teams. They can't manage that type of thing. And maybe he's a good guy, a good leader, all of that stuff. The autopsies on his leadership is certainly it's too early to say. I haven't seen enough to know about that, but it's not doing much. And spits and starts going to be good enough. And it's the same old story with West Indies cricket. I am afraid that we have to move on. I don't care who it is. I mean, maybe Alzar Joseph, as soon as he gets back, some people are going to talk about, well, you don't really want, fast bowlers to be captain. It's nonsense. Pat Cummins is, and I'm not putting Pat Cummins and Alzar in the same situation, but you can lead by committee. You have people doing things closer by that can help you out. It's what they do in Australia. The captaincy sometimes can be a bit overrated. I mean, you need leaders to step up in a team, and you do it by commission, by committee, right? Perhaps Shea Hope, because he started to bat much better in Test cricket now. He looked fairly decent at different points in the series. Unfortunately, he had one day an eye infection, some illness, but then again, you're going to then put him to be the captain of all 3 formats of cricket. That's a lot on him as well. Not all three versions of cricket, right, including Test cricket, right? So he's already the ODI and T20 captain. I don't know. Where else do you go from there? Is the likes of a Jaden Seal ready yet? It's a good question. Is Graves' place secure there? Is he captain mentality? We have to look out elsewhere. Because there's talent that's not doing anything to it. The Alec Athanasis thing is really hurting my heart because everybody knows that this guy is talented. It just can't work. I don't know what the solution is. I keep saying the solution is ship him off to some place for a few years to develop. Shield cricket, it probably won't get in. There's problems in getting into those spaces too. County cricket, it needs more exposure. I don't know, but at some point, talent, you get found out easily at the international level, and you have to do this for yourself. There's a little bright spark with Hodge coming back into the side after being out, and he got a century. Chandapal looked okay. He had a 50 run, then he had that side strain or so that didn't allow him to play the last 2 test matches. Even Brandon King looked okayish, and I was kind of skeptical of that too. Campbell, still the jury's out. So there's a lot of problems in this whole West Indies lineup that we need to think through. But I think the captaincy, we got to look somewhere else for that too, because the guy can't he cannot justify himself in the team. It doesn't make sense. Honestly, it doesn't make sense. But on the one side that we're looking at the problems of West Indies cricket, we also have to kind of shout out, what now can be the legend, Jacob Duffy. Look at the New Zealand's. We talk a little bit about Latham and Conway earlier on as well. Spectacular bowling, batting rather. But while Weston is were crumbling, Duffy was, responsible for a large amount of it, but he was ascending himself into a legendary status. With his 5 wicket haul, he also reached 81 test wickets in the calendar year. That's more than the great Richard Hadlee. It's like 40-year-old record for the Kiwis. That's big. So shout out to him. But what a serious performance for him. 23 wickets, averaging 15.4. It's kind of single most dominant performance bowling wise of the series, or for any New Zealander, I think, for them in a long time. And for him, when he started to move that ball a little bit, West Indies couldn't play him. Could not. So yeah. The series ends 2-0 for the New Zealanders. The Kiwis win that. The Black Caps rather. For them, it's like of a summer of records because it's their summer now. They're gonna enjoy themselves. But if it's a summer of records for them, I'm afraid it's a winter of soul searching for the West Indies. And I know there's no winter in the Caribbean, but I don't have any other way to put it creatively. It's new series coming up in the year, and there's a lot of work to be done. But you have to let me know as well. But we started off that series, and I really thought, to be honest with you, that the West Indies could have gotten something out of it. And with better cricket, they could have. They could have. Could have drawn the last match here. They would have lost, but they would have gotten 2 draws away. They would have looked at a few players missing. I know the Kiwis are also missing some players too, but you could take heart from this, and it's not a situation that I like. It hurts the heart. But the great David Michael Rudder from Trinidad and Tobago, he always says rally around the West Indies now and forevermore, right? That's part of the song. That originally was a great Calypsonian song or Calypso, and then commissioned to be more of the West Indies anthem. And it's an emotional piece because think about how long we rule the cricketing world and what we've done and accomplished and all the stories. And I always say to myself, given my age, I was fortunate to see great cricket as well. And but now it's been a good period of time that it's just a struggle. So much so that sometimes we talk about should they even be playing Test cricket, which people make those conversations, but it's not a thing that I'd like to. I agree with, but it's tough. I truly hope that there's a good holiday and they'll will come back and reevaluate. There's going to be a little bit of different pace of cricket. Obviously, the T20 World Cup is next year again. IPL starts and all of that kind of cricket that's going everywhere. But for West Indies cricket, they need to do something for first class cricket and try to get players that can be competitive. And I do hope the likes of Alzari and Shamar gets back healthy because the bowling is, if they get everybody there alongside Jaden Seals and you throw in a couple other youngsters that are coming through, can be competitive. And we saw that earlier this summer too in Australia tour. They got 20 wickets. West Indies, that is. It's just the batting is just nothing. Doesn't have the resistance. So that's the kind of challenge. But cricket doesn't finish. There's the Boxing Day test that's going to happen in Australia. I don't know how the English are in free fall. I saw that the entire ECB heads are in Australia. There's a whole autopsy that's happening there, and baseball and whatever they want to talk about is under problems. And you know, it's an English team that if they probably played better, probably would have had better result. But the Ashes has been retained by Australia, and so the other two Test matches aren't for nothing. They don't have they. I mean, I think the Australians want to do a 5-0 series. I don't know if they will, but you know, the one thing that they wanted to retain, they did. Because that's different levels of cricket going on over there. Very gripping, exciting, high class as well. So we'll see. But that was my take. I hope you would put your take of that series if you're a cricket fan, and share your thoughts on West Indies cricket and or New Zealand as well. You know, do drop your comments in. You know, I try to read every one of them. I don't always get a chance to respond to everything, but we do this. You know, I hope you enjoyed this kind of deep dive here or my rant on it on the rundown. But I want to also wish everybody a happy holidays. Hopefully, you have a memorable time in the next few days. You know, it's been my pleasure. And yeah, keep supporting the channel. We'll probably have some more videos coming out before the end of the calendar year. We'll try to do some wrap up before the year and see where we are. But it's been my pleasure to come hang out with you guys this evening. I hope you guys are doing well wherever you are in the world, and have fun, be safe, and we'll see you another time. Bye bye.